Hey everyone, we are going to get started creating a Node.js API for us to use for our products, but also for possibly other developers to come into and get some information from your product or service. So let's go to nodejs.org, and on the homepage there, you'll scroll down a bit and you'll see a couple of download links. There are some features that were added in 7.6 that we'll discuss later that we are going to need in our application. So go ahead and install that. Go through all the different steps to install the package. Once you install the package, you will have Node and NPM downloaded. And to check that, we are going to open up Terminal, and we can just do Node-V and see I have 7.10. And then if you do NPM-V, we'll see that it has our NPM version as well. Next, we need to download a code editor so that we can create some code. You may have a favorite code editor such as Sublime or Atom, which is absolutely fine. I personally love Visual Studio Code, so go ahead and download and install your code editor. All right, now that we have Node, NPM, and our favorite code editor installed, you can see I've got Visual Studio Code pulled up, and I've pressed Control, Shift, and tilde. That will pull up a terminal window inside of Visual Studio Code, which is very handy. And now we need to create a folder for our Node API. So I've already got a place where I create projects. I'm going to go into Documents and Projects, and here we are going to create a new folder. So we'll do Make Directory, and we'll just call it Node API. We'll go into our Node API directory, and you can see that there is nothing currently in there. So let's go ahead and run npm init. npm init is going to set up our package, our application here. So first we give it a name. You can pretty much scroll and hit enter through all of these. And so we'll call it Node API. We'll call it the first version. We'll just set a description of our awesome Node API. And keep scrolling through. We can come back to these later. If you know what license you want to use for your project, you can set it here, and then it'll ask for a final confirmation, and we'll hit yes. So if we clear it out and we look in our contents of our directory, we can see we have a package.json file. If we go over to this icon, we can open our folder. So let's go to open folder. You'll see our Node API directory, and we'll hit open. And Visual Studio is now going to open this directory, and we can see our package.json file. So there's not much in our package.json file. You can see it's got all the different parameters that we had set for it. So let's close out the package.json file. Let's add a new document, and we're going to call it index.js. This is going to be our entry point into our application. And in here, let's just put in console log hello world. All right, so let's save that. We're going to hit Control Shift and tilde again to bring up our terminal. So we have our terminal. Let's just run node index.js. So when we run this, we're in the node-API directory. It's going to run the file that we just created, and we see hello world. All right, next let's create a new file. We're going to create a config.json file. Our config file is going to tell our application different variables to use depending on whether it's in development mode or production mode. So we're going to create a JSON object here, and our first key is going to be development. We're going to create a JSON object that has a greeting, and here it'll be hello development. Then the next key will be production. We'll create an object and give it a greeting as well, and it will be hello production. So let's save that and go back to our index.js file. And at the top of this file, we are going to create a variable called config, and we're going to require our config.json file. And now we need to tell the config file what environment we're going to be using, whether it be development or production. So since it is a JSON file, we can tell it to use process.env and then node underscore env, or to use production. So when you're running a node application, you can actually set the node environment that should be used whenever you start the command to run the application. But if we don't set that node environment, we want to make sure that our config file does send something to our application. So we are going to tell it, if there is no node environment variable set, go ahead and use production. Now inside of our console log, let's go in and change this to say config and greeting. And now let's save that. Let's go and type in node index.js. It returns an error, cannot find config.json. So the reason for that is that we have to tell it where config.json is. It's not a package, it's not a node module that we've installed. So let's just tell it that it's in the same directory. And then let's save that again. If we go down, run node index.js, we have hello production. Since we didn't set a node environment whenever we were running the application, it defaulted to production and pulled that greeting in. So let's go back and let's type in node environment equals development and do node index.js. And now you can see that we have our hello development console log. All right, our application is set up and now we can start creating some routes.